What's good? You rocking with your boys, Zara, All Rights Reserved. Now, we talked just yesterday about the methods. Um, you won't be able to see from here, but across the street over there, there's actually two uniformed cars, and one was sitting there for about half an hour to 45 minutes, and literally another car that has this jurisdiction pulled up beside it. Now, that's another way that intel's provided that a uniformed officer will see something, not really be sure. But what they do is they get a secondary uniformed car because they may have the belief that something's going on or something has happened. And he pulls up as a witness. Now, the reason they have this, so if something goes down, not only will it be backup, but it'll be a cosign. And what they'll usually do is call another car from another area, because a cosign from another area or jurisdiction for some reason will hold more weight than their own pulling up and two guys who may be familiar with each other. So they'll call someone else who has a cosign from another area because it looks unbiased. And that's just from a point of view where two officers from different jurisdictions are saying the same thing. They literally moved up closer to the building. He saw me looking at him for a while over there, and I was seeing what was going on, actually doing my research in the field. And I get it. They pulled up window to window, both facing, looking at each other's backs. It's a very normal tactic that you'll see, and that's just because they watch each other's back while they sit there and talk. Now, sometimes they use it for social means to look like they're doing something, but most times, they're doing it because they see something they may be able to set up. It could be that they may think they smell something in the area, so they want to sit there, or it may be because they're trying to implicate someone in something that was done prior to the time. So they're filling each other in, getting a feel for the situation, seeing how they're both going to handle it or how the other jurisdiction handles it in their area. I was trying to take a picture and show you guys from here, but they moved up closer, so there's no way to really see it, but that's another common method. We just talked about the interpersonal method. That's a cheap way to gain intel and a cheap way to have a cosign in court so that they're able to double down on giving someone charges or just literally arresting or exposing someone. And sometimes they'll call in a different jurisdiction because they may be familiar with a person. He may have looked up the person's vehicle and saw they live in a certain area and saw if this person knows them or if they have any information in their system or database that could expose this person for having done something similar or been involved in something that was done in their situation. I'm saying that to also lead to this because today we're going to talk about why people are stopped and how to avoid getting stopped for things. A common way to avoid getting stopped for things, we'll go through that and what the means is, because as we know, they recently got rid of registration here. In places like Florida, there was never registration needed, but we're going to take the Florida approach because, again, there's a manhunt in Florida. So Florida is going to get the information now, but the avoid getting stopped is kind of synonymous, but it's what's allowed. So a common thing you see people put on is tents. When you're using tents in Florida, the rule is 15% light can go through your window. So correct me if I'm wrong. Again, that means that you can have about 85% tent down in Florida. Here, there is no rules, but that's the biggest danger. And I'll go into explaining why. Another slight to that is there's a certain level of reflection. See, that's the thing. It's 85% down there, but you may want less, just enough so that a body's visible and they know that light's going through, because reflection levels is a totally different subject. And this is something that they use to, in a sense, get people dead to rights and beat them in a court case without having the true probable cause or just reason to pull someone over. That's why it's a gift and a curse that you're able to have dark tents. But if it's dark enough and they really want to check you out, they can. If they try and say your reflection level's bad, it's an excuse that most officers use. Now, down there, for the manhunt and what's going on, and just overall the situation they use to set people up, is to have the cosign of another officer doing something. So say you had 60% tints, that's well over 15% light visible. They're still able to see a body in there, but they may not be able to see your face with clarity. What you would do is you keep your windows up. You never put your windows down. The reason you never put your windows down is because any officer can claim they smell something or think something's amiss randomly, and they can literally get you in the court of law. But being it's a manhunt, if they come upon their guy, they just got you dead to rights without having to use any type of proper system to catch you. So they can presume you guilty and say, oh, we thought we smelled something and then we got the guy, if they thought they saw someone that looked like him. And if you have a warrant, you also get picked up and it's justifiable. The craziest part to this, and we're going to go back to Pennsylvania and why no tent rules is actually a bad thing, is because if there's no rules on tent, I can literally pull you over saying I thought your tent was too dark. So at the same time, there's no rules, so you should be fine. I could say that I thought, and because there's no real set, I can use that to get you dead to rights. That's a simple way that they catch people up and stop them legally. And this is how people are profiled without a problem on a daily basis, because if they're making these claims, they're justified in doing it because there's really no law that sets it that your tent must be a certain color or something else must be a certain reflection. So you can get pulled over at will. In Florida, the reflection thing is an easy way to pull people over, and they actually do have devices that monitor tent. So whether or not your tent was right, all I have to do is make claims that I thought I smelled something. So say you're perfectly riding with your windows up and everything, and you're doing everything correct. If you're not driving correctly, or they want to say like you turned wrong or something like that, the most common way to stop people without registration is a traffic violation. If you're not making a traffic violation, there's truly no way to really stop you but off of bogus claims. Now, these bogus claims get people locked up daily. That's the thing that most people don't realize. You get locked up daily off of these bogus claims, and there's really nothing to kind of put up in the air to say, hey, this person wasn't doing anything bad. They literally collect you and say, look, we think that this guy such and such had a warrant such and such. So there's ways to playing it. It's a game. You're not making traffic violations. You're moving justly. You have your windows up. Your tent's fine. Technically, you can't get pulled over, so you'd be able to make all your stops and make all your moves without being prejudged or profiled. And that's what a lot of individuals get caught off. They get profiled unjustly and pulled out their car due to bogus claims because they don't follow the other laws of engagement. And that's what this is. This is the laws of engagement. Here in Pennsylvania, you move with your windows up, you're driving right. Recently, about 5 years ago, we lost the need to update registration. So no longer can they just do mention registration and stop you. There needs to be some type of issue with your license. They're supposed to be checking license. Now, don't think that just because this is the case, they don't still violate people. And that's when you got to go to court and fight it. But that's usually what they want because you're spending money in the system. My whole goal as an officer is of the law, being if that was the case, is to get you to spend money in the system. Every time I could get you to spend money in the system, I win, because I got you in a situation where you're pent up and you have to prove your innocence. So no longer is it innocent until proven guilty. You have to prove it or disprove it. It's a whole game. It's how it works. So one good example, that officer was sitting over there for about 45 minutes, just sitting outside of an area. He had no just reason. He had no just cause. He had, let's say, he didn't smell or see nothing. He's literally using that to sit out on the area and to abuse his power. So he can kind of say, oh, I sat there because of this and that. It takes out legwork. And he literally used himself to get the officers who are the jurisdiction of this area to come over and be his secondary goal to sit with him. They more than likely talked about what he wanted to do, what he wanted to get, and you got two guys moving the same way trying to get one person. This is how you outnumber and basically overwhelm someone in court like a brawl. You overwhelm them because now you guys are going to practice what you're saying and practice what you want to think, and you guys are going to work together to speak to each other. This literally gives you power of authority within the court. See, what most people don't realize, officers have more control in the court system than they think. Literally, an officer can say, I want the case dropped, and the case is dropped. Or he could say, I want this person pursued for that, and they're going to be pursued for that. So if you're being on a manhunt in any state or anywhere, tents are allowed. You want to have basic tents so that it may cover you up, but you don't want it to be too much. I see a lot of people riding around with black tents where you literally can't see anything. This is a mistake, because I can use that at any time to pull you over and say, I thought you were somebody, or you were looking for somebody with that car. It doesn't even have to be true. All it has to do is say, well, I thought his car matched that model. I didn't see the sign. There's many different things that they can say. But the thing about it is, you can beat it in court. But my advice to anyone going to court, always buy your lawyer. Don't ever walk in with a greenhorn, because a greenhorn, one thing is, my first case, I caught my greenhorn behind the scenes trying to make a deal with the cop, talking to him. Ever since then, I never, ever went without buying a lawyer, because honestly, that should be unconstitutional. But again, some of these guys communicate on a friendly level, so you never know what the just cause is. So monitor your tents, drive safely. All rights reserved.